Hey, what's going on, everyone? Alex Swenson here, Director of Education for Tau Kappa Epsilon, and excited to be with you today to talk about event planning. I think that's something that just about every chapter colony does in some form or fashion, and a lot of you will go on to do at other junctures in your life, be that planning graduation parties or weddings or anything else. And it's an area where there's, I think, some intricacies that lie a little below the surface that hopefully I can help you work through a little bit. And really, the reason I'm so excited and so passionate about event planning is because that's my main function for the fraternity. Things like RLCs, Conclave, Leadership Academy, our Grand Council meetings, our alumni volunteer academies, those really all fall under my umbrella where I'm the one negotiating with hotels and negotiating with vendors and getting schedules put together and plans in place. And I want to try and offload some of that information for you all to hopefully help you be more successful the next time you have to plan an event. I really want to focus today on off-site events, meaning things that are going on away from your campus. Some of the tips and tricks and lessons that I go through will definitely be applicable to on-campus events or even things that are taking place in your fraternity house. But at the end of the day, really I think where the challenges are and where there's a lot more ground to either be successful or not be so successful is when you're going away from campus and working with third-party vendors, hotels, other companies, things of that nature. And your ability to negotiate and work different vendors against one another is going to be more limited if you're staying on campus or if you're staying in your house. Really, when it comes to planning an event, there are three portions that I break it down into, and it's pretty simple, but it helps me make sense of everything. And that's the first stage, which is pre-planning, all the time and effort that goes into planning an event that's going to make it successful. That's where we're going to focus most of our time today. Second stage is the actual on-site execution of the event. And then the third stage is everything that happens after the event, where you're looking back and making sure that things went according to plan. And if they didn't, trying to figure out why that is. So we'll jump right in here. And really the way I want to go through this is just by building an event from the ground up. So if you want to think of it in terms of an RCB, or maybe you're looking at an offsite philanthropy event, a community service event, some sort of retreat, a brotherhood retreat, an officer retreat, that's where I want to spend most of our time. And even if you are doing something on campus, or even if you're doing a recruitment event at your house that's an hour long, I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about can still apply. There's just going to be some portions that maybe aren't as relevant. So the first part of planning an event is figuring out when you're going to have it and where you want to have it. And the next stage is figuring out which of those two details is more important. Is it more important that something happens on a specific date and at a specific time or on a specific day of the week? Or is it more important that it happens in a specific location, a specific city, in a hotel that you've identified, or an event venue? Because answering that question first is going to limit your flexibility on the other one, right? If you have to have an event on September 15th, you're kind of at the liberty of whatever is available. If you have to have an event at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Indianapolis, your ability to dictate the exact day and time you want that event's going to be limited because maybe the Hyatt's already booked. So think about it in those terms. And frankly, if you're wide open on both of those, that gives you a lot more flexibility and it makes things a lot easier. So that's the first thing: when you're going to have it, where you're going to have it, and making sure that you're able to lock those pieces in place as soon as possible. Next stage: get the details for the event on paper, and this goes for anything: recruitment, philanthropy, RCBs. Get it down on paper. Don't just try and have it all up here so that when someone asks you, you're forced to try and remember everything that you've thought about. How many people are going to be there? That could be a rough estimate. That could be an exact number. How many people are you planning this event for? Do you need hotel rooms? Do you need food and beverage? Do you need alcohol? Because that opens up a whole other layer of things. Are you bringing in entertainment? Are you bringing in a DJ, a band? Do you need props? Do you need a stage, tables and chairs, pool tables, air hockey. I don't know, but that's all information that you need to have ahead of time as you're planning the event out. Don't allow that to just come together, because you're probably going to miss something, and it's probably going to cost you more money. And then the last objective there about getting the details down on paper is, what is your budget? Writing down a number that you know you have to stay within, all things considered, because you can't plan a successful event without a budget for that event. And yes, that can be flexible, and yes, that can change throughout time, but you need to start with a number, because that's gonna kick the process off about securing those things like a venue, food and beverage. That's going to allow you to start to have those conversations. So what is your budget for said event? The next step, securing your venue and any service providers that you need. So that can include signing contracts with hotels, with vendors, with caterers, with transportation companies. But understanding your needs, having those needs down on paper, that's going to make this process a lot easier, and it's going to allow you to hold to the price point that you have identified. Negotiate through that stage, and you hear everything's negotiable. And in the event industry, that's true. You have a lot of different providers that are all vying for your business. So if you have two hotels, pit them against each other. Just say, hey, I'm getting a proposal of X dollars at one hotel, and we're really leaning that way because the price is friendly. And if the other venue says, great, have fun with that property, you got your decision made. If the other venue says, well, what about if I could do this for you? And again, it's the same way with anything, with catering companies, with restaurants, with bus companies. You can use them against each other to leverage. Don't just go with the first option. Don't just go with the first person to get back to you. And always start with a number that's below your intended budget. So if your budget for an event is $7,000 and someone asks you what your budget is, a hotel asks you what your budget is for the event, don't tell them $7,000, because that's the number they're going to work off of. Tell them $5,000 and they say, oh, okay, sorry, we can do it for $6,000. You just saved $1,000 off your budget. The hotel thinks they have a victory as well, and everyone's happy. So there's a lot that goes into those negotiations, and I think that's a whole other lesson, a whole other video that we could work on at some point. But don't be afraid to negotiate. The worst that you're going to hear is, no, sorry, we can't go that low. We can't do that for you, and then you move on. So don't hesitate, and don't try and avoid that part of the event planning process, because ultimately the goal is to put the best possible event on for the least amount of money, right? Consider also, as you're going through that process of securing service providers, specifically in our business, consider references. Consider companies that you've done business with in the past that you've paid on time and worked well with. When people see that you're part of a fraternity, they might take a step back. And I think that that is unfortunately a natural reaction in a lot of cases. But if you're able to go in with some solid relationships in place and say, hey, last year we worked with this restaurant, or we held the event at this venue, and everything went great, and you're welcome to call them and ask them how it went. Once again, that's going to give you a little more negotiation power, and that's going to give you the ability to open up your options. Whereas if you don't have that, some companies may just outright say they don't want to work with you, or they can't work with you, and you have to cross them off the list from the top. Next piece, building a schedule. And I like to think of schedules both internal and external. Your internal schedule should be very, very detailed, down to the minute at times, if possible, so that everyone who's receiving that schedule in your chapter, or any key stakeholders, they know exactly what is going on and when it's going on. Your external schedule, that can be a little less detailed if you want. You don't have to have the same exact information in both of those, but I think it is smart to have at the very least an internal schedule that you're then sending to everyone. But I like to keep them separate, because there's always information that your staff or your chapter brothers, the people that are responsible for your event, there's always information that they need to know that frankly the attendees just don't. But build your schedule, be detailed. And if the event is detailed enough, if there's a lot of big things going on, like an RCB, like a big community service event, not necessarily maybe for a recruitment event or a social event, but consider holding a meeting with the key stakeholders, with the guys in the chapter, with the people that are helping you put the event on. Consider a meeting a week out or 2 weeks out, just to walk through the schedule with everyone, make sure everyone's comfortable with what's going on and can ask any questions that they have, because getting those questions out of the way ahead of time is going to help you be a lot more successful than if people are all showing up to the event with 100 questions and not knowing who they need to talk to necessarily. Your next piece then, and this kind of, this I talked about a little bit with the schedule, but assign roles. Assign staffing. Figure out, are all the roles coming from within your chapter? Do you need help from people on campus? Do you need help from people at the venue? Do you need help from outside sources? Do you need to hire a security company? Do you need to bring in a DJ? Things like that, those are all hopefully being decided upon in that details stage, but at some point you need to fill those roles. When it comes to assigning roles, I think that is one of the most important pieces of putting on an event, and that goes everything from putting on a conclave once every 2 years to hosting a cookout for recruitment. The people that are involved in the event, they want to know, and they need to know exactly what they're doing. And if you're leading that event, it's your responsibility to tell them. There's few things that I find more obnoxious, and the people who know me know this, than someone coming up to me in the middle of an event when things are busy and saying, hey man, what do you need me for? I want to have that all figured out ahead of time. I want you to know exactly what I need you for. And if you get done with that, you're free to do as you please. But that is a really big part, is taking care of the people that are responsible for making the event successful, making sure that they know their purpose, they know their mission, and that they know their responsibilities. Things like who's setting up, who's gonna tear down, who's gonna go there early, who's gonna stay late, who's responsible during the on-site to make sure that things are going as planned. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you're assigning that to someone else. If you don't prepare a plan for your staff, you're preparing for chaos. And just when I say your staff, of course, I mean anyone who's a part of this event that's going on. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of doing that, even for your smallest, most trivial seeming social events, recruitment events, because if it's all you that's trying to put it on, you're going to set yourself up for failure when you try and go to someone and ask them for something that they hadn't planned to do. So prepare your staff, prepare your friends, assign roles, and make sure those are communicated clearly ahead of time. And then, lastly, before we get to the on-site execution, market your event, advertise it, make sure people know what's going on, especially if this is a recruitment event or if it's a philanthropy event where you need butts and seats to raise a bunch of money for St. Jude. Get an advertising plan together, a marketing plan, allow plenty of time, start marketing a month out, 2 months out. As soon as you have those key details in place, like when and where and what's going on, you can start letting people know, and they're going to appreciate the heads up. You don't need to have every single detail figured out, because that can be filled in as we go along. For example, Conclave 2021 in Houston. We know it's at the Marriott Marquis in downtown Houston. We know the dates. We don't know yet what the educational workshops are going to be like. We don't know who the keynote speaker is going to be at our awards luncheon. We will know at some point in the next probably 6 to 8 months, and we'll advertise that accordingly. But we're not waiting until we have a keynote speaker secured to let you know when Conclave is, because that would be setting up for guys who had already made plans for those dates and who had already elected to spend their time doing something else. So think of it that way. Get that advertising, that marketing out as soon as you possibly can. And then if there are attendance requirements, or especially if there needs to be money paid to attend the event, set deadlines. Give people deadlines that they need to have their money in by, that they need to have their RSVPs in. And it should go without saying, but always make sure those deadlines are in advance of when you actually need it. I would say a week or two, before you need to know or before you need to pay. Have that deadline in place so that if people haven't gotten back to you, you have a little time to go and figure out what's going on before you need to submit your final numbers or before you need to write a check. We get now to the on-site execution, and really the goal is that you've put enough work and enough effort into the planning that this runs smoothly, that this is, you're on cruise control. Obviously, there's always going to be things that go wrong, that are unexpected, twists and turns that you weren't prepared for, but by preparing a solid plan, by preparing your staff, by assigning roles, by having a detailed schedule, the on-site execution is significantly easier than if you just try and go and wing it. you'll need a clear point person. You'll need someone who's responsible for setup, tear down, making sure things are going smoothly. And maybe that's you, maybe that's someone else, but make sure that you have someone who is in charge of the event, and that it's not just, oh, I think this guy might know the answer to that specific question, and this guy might know the answer to the next question that you have to ask. Make sure that that is assigned ahead of time and that everyone knows who that point person is. Rehearse if it's necessary. If you have audio or video, if you have AV, if you have a speaker, spend some time rehearsing. Spend some time making sure that your speaker is comfortable with the microphone, that the video that you're trying to play works, that the PowerPoint clicker clicks properly. And do that, again, with enough advance notice that if it doesn't work, you have time to go fix it. I would never suggest for an event that's large enough in scale to need some of those things, I would never suggest going into it without a solid rehearsal plan in place. So make sure that you plan for that accordingly, you put it in the schedule, and you make the people who need to know about it aware so they can be in the right place at the right time. Check in on your guests periodically throughout the event, especially if there's VIPs, if there's specific individuals that you have invited, whether that's campus administrators or alumni or TKE VIPs. Check in on them. Just see how their experience is going. A quick, hey, how's it going? Can I get you anything? That means a lot to those individuals, and it doesn't take a lot of energy for you to do. And most of the time, the answer is going to be no, everything's great. So just make sure you're making a point to give those guests a good experience and give them an experience that they're going to remember, or if they do need something, a bottle of water to know where the restroom is, that you're right there to help them out. Your number one priority when putting on an event is ensuring that your guests have a good experience. So that could be potential new members. That could be 20 freshmen coming to the house for a cookout or for Monday Night Football. Or again, that could be 200 people at an RCB. That could be 700 people at a conclave. If they leave having had a good experience and thinking things went great, it doesn't matter necessarily what went wrong in the background. Hopefully that's limited. You could have chaos going on behind the scenes, but if you keep a steady attitude, if you keep a level head and ensure that no one but you and the couple other people responsible for the event know that those things are going wrong, then you put on a successful event because your customers, your guests, your audience walked away happy. Things are going to go wrong. It's Murphy's Law, right? There are always going to be things that don't go according to plan. But the more you have a plan in place to begin with, the more that you've communicated your needs and communicated your scheduling and your staffing with everyone around you, the quicker you can rebound from those pitfalls and the faster that you can turn around on a problem, on an unexpected issue that pops up. So just know that there's nothing wrong with things not going according to schedule, not going according to plan. And again, that could be a wedding, that could be an anniversary party, it could be a birthday party, but have a bounce back plan and have an understanding of who's going to handle things if they go sideways and what they're going to do to ensure that those types of things don't continue to happen as the event goes on. And then lastly, once you get through the event, I would encourage you as the event planner, capture your thoughts immediately. That could be in real time. I carry around a little pocket notebook at all of our events and just jot down thoughts, jot down feedback that I have for myself or for other people as the event's going on so I don't lose it. Or immediately after the event concludes, just sit down for 10 minutes, write down your thoughts in a Word document or on a piece of paper. If it's a larger event, if it's something where there's several different people in the chapter who have played significant roles, consider a debrief. Consider sitting down for a couple hours. We do that with all of our events at TKE. Sit down for a couple hours, talk through what went well, what didn't go well, how you can do better the next time. And if it's an annual event, or if this is the first time that you've done an event or done a community service project or something along those lines, it's especially important because that information is going to help you make next year even better, make the next time you do things even higher quality in each of the 3 stages. If it's a smaller event, a recruitment event, things like that, it's still smart to evaluate the pros and cons, even if it's just a few people that you're sitting down with. Hey, what'd you like? What didn't you like? Social events, same way, because it's only going to make you better. It's only going to help you prepare better for the next one and the one after that. And that's only going to help your guests, your customers, your audience have a better experience moving forward. So that's the big piece after the event is the evaluation, the debrief, and thinking about how you can make the next event go even smoother. Planning events is stressful. It is a lot of stress in a lot of different ways coming at you from a lot of different angles. But it's very rewarding, and it should be fun. You should enjoy yourself. That's the goal of a lot of the events that we put on as Teaks, is to have fun, and you should not be deprived of that just because you're planning the event. But you should know when the fun time is and when the work time is and how to separate those two. So don't let the stress bury you until you no longer find enjoyment in putting these things together, because it should be enjoyable and it should be rewarding to see all of your hard work pay off in the end. Last piece, use our headquarters, use our staff. The offices of the Grand Chapter has a lot of really good resources when it comes to reviewing contracts and reviewing license agreements and just making sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck on venues or on food providers. I'm happy to help. I know our risk and compliance team is really talented at looking through contracts and identifying language that may be problematic, but just in general, our staff has a lot of experience putting programs and events on, and I hope that you reach out and utilize us as necessary. Thank you all for your time. I hope that was helpful. I hope you can pull out a few nuggets, even if it's just for your next Rush event or your next social event, that are going to make it function at an even higher level and have people walking away thinking that Teak really knows what the heck they're doing. So appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to you again soon, and enjoy the rest of your day.